Now, you look back at your school years, and what do you think? I mean, very well educated that we were, and a brilliant job by the teachers. But I think in my particular school upbringing, far too many homeworks. So 9 subjects a day, 9 homeworks a night, absolutely ridiculous, slave labour. You would be, you'd be up at 7 in the morning and you wouldn't be in bed till 10 o'clock at night, and you were doing homeworks until that time. And I don't think that progressed me in life. And I felt that at school, I didn't learn anything practical. I learned nothing about finance. I learned nothing about cooking, for instance. And I feel that I should have. That's what I feel was missing.
Yeah. I learned stuff about sewing and stuff which I wish they hadn't wasted my time on. I've never picked up a needle and thread in my life.
Quite sexist, that, isn't it?
Very sexist. I didn't get taught anything about finance, so that was an interesting journey I went on through my 20s, trying to get my head around council tax and mortgages and all rent and all of these things, and it was probably more difficult than it should have been. But I do also really believe in education for education's sake. I don't want my kids to go to a factory that is just preparing them for the world of work.
No, but I think it should be an option, because I think very few...
It should be a rounded education.
I think very few of us are actually dedicated to being, I suppose, what am I looking for anyway? Being just brain boxes for the rest of your life.
Academics or whatever.
Voters, only a fifth of voters think schools prepare your kids for work, compared to 2/3 who believe the education system doesn't give pupils the skills they'll need for employment. So,
does school prepare children for work? Let's get the thoughts this morning of a maths teacher, author and broadcaster Bobby Seagull, regular on the programme. Good morning. He thinks schools don't prepare children. And we've also got the political commentator Jonathan Gibson, who thinks they do. Jonathan, let's start with you, because perhaps out of all of the views you've heard from us this morning so far, you might be on your own on this one. Tell us more.
No, thank you very much. And look, I certainly don't think that schools are perfect by any means. I think that, bodies of work like finance, teaching people about taxes, how to do a tax return, different vocations would be an amazing thing. But I think, unfortunately, our schools are not necessarily in a scenario or in a place yet where we have the resources and have the abilities to be able to provide that, let alone even kind of a fundamental understanding of the core subjects. And if you look at the educational attainment that we're reaching in this country, it is quite shockingly low. I think there are elements in which we can't ignore school plays an important role, and I think this is often taken for granted in some ways, whether that's in social skills, providing teamwork, building on people's communication, placing some form of time management and also responsibility. I think those sorts of things with, for example, discipline, behaviour, structure, actually need to be fleshed out much more within schools, and the basics really need to be reached, which I think are not being reached at many of the schools in our country at the moment. And we're seeing teachers leaving, we're seeing clips of very bad behaviour at schools and a lack of that sort of discipline and structure before possibly we can even think about somewhat reaching national curriculum level when it comes to teaching things like finance, like cooking, which obviously requires great resources and would be amazing things to do.
Okay, so you think that is sort of missing from the curriculum. It's how you squeeze it all in. Bobby Seagull is a teacher, he's a maths teacher, friend of this programme. What do you think, Bobby?
So I've been in schools now for secondary and sixth form for a decade now. And what I think is, again, I think teachers, we try our hardest to deliver what the curriculum gives us. But sadly, I think schooling in the UK and probably many parts of the world is still very Victorian. If you look at some of the video clips that you showed during the earlier segment, it showed children sitting in rows, in tables, with the teacher in the front. That's pretty much what happened in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. And now we're in the 2020s. Education is still that one-way system. So education in schools hasn't changed to adapt to using technology, the way young people learn, their interests. And again, what Isabel said, is school for education for education's sake, or is it the other side? Is it a factory to create just workers for the future? I don't think it's either side, it's somewhere in the middle, but currently we're not getting it right, because when I see my students and they leave, and again, some of my students are in the middle of their GCSEs, the last maths GCSE was done yesterday, so well done my students, but in the summer, in the middle of August, when they pick up the results, down the months, down the years, when I see students, often what they tell me is, Ms. Seagull, you did a really good job. of teaching us the maths, but we didn't learn the things that we needed to learn.
Yeah.
Again, the budgeting, the personal finance you mentioned, Isabel.
Yeah.
Even something like how to cook a basic meal, because these are young people that some go to university, some do apprenticeships. They don't have these basic skills they need for life. And I feel as if schools, it's not, okay, if it's not on the curriculum, we can't deliver it. So I feel as if there needs to be a top-down revolution in terms of what we can teach and what we can deliver. So at the moment, people do their best, but I think education fails young people in some ways.
Yeah, I tell you who fails young people often. Parents. And Jonathan, what do you think about the responsibility of parents? I mean, sometimes this is why this falls to teachers maybe to fill in areas that a lot of parents should be fulfilling, but they don't, and they never will.
Yeah, I think if you look at the differences in attainment across schools, like one of the really significant reasons is because of the amount that parents actually care about education. And I think that's just a strong indicator in terms of how the child will perform, because school exists to provide some sort of structure. And I think structure is an incredibly important thing in a child's life. And I can speak obviously from experience and not being that long ago for myself. But I think that if you don't have structure at home, it kind of works against everything that's trying to be built upon at school. And I would just say in response to the previous comments, I agree, but I think in order to get the fundamentals, to be able to even act independently, we need to really establish strong roots of structure and of understanding of basic maths and English, which are really, really important. And again, missing in so many elements of school. So I think we can talk about this as well in the context of higher education specifically, where I do completely agree with Bobby that, there's way too much focus on academia for academia's sake.
But Jonathan, when you talk about getting things like maths right, and both Isabel and I are a bit lost on that front. Arithmetic, I'll take anybody on, my times tables, whatever, stayed with me all throughout my life. When I got to grammar school, it was much more difficult for me understanding maths. And here's the thing, Bobby, never had to use the sort of skills that you may well be teaching.
Sin, cos, tan, Pythagoras theorem.
Never had to
16.
use it, never missed it, didn't need it. Now, I should have been given the option by at least third year to have said, right, bail out of that, Eamon, it's not for you, instead of being made to take it and fail it in fifth form or sixth form.
Yeah, if I can speak onto that point, Eamon, what I would say is that with maths, I personally think there should be two parts of the curriculum. One, there is the sort of advanced track for students that we think will end up doing sciences, computing, and take on further maths. So those people, they do need access to Pythagoras, trigonometry, as you mentioned. But for some students who may not use maths beyond, there should be almost a separate core maths curriculum of the maths that's relevant to day-to-day life, whether it's simple things like how to use maths in a spreadsheet or how to use maths of budgeting or personal finance. And at the moment, we sort of fail students by forcing everyone to do, even though I find intrinsically attractive and beautiful, we're forcing them to all do these things which maybe they might see as irrelevant.
But you never know. I'm always worried about that. You never know what the consequences will be of that. When I was at secondary school, they streamed maths. I was in the bottom set, which meant I couldn't take the GCSE, which would get an A grade. The highest you could get was a C. My mum was not having it. She was absolutely not having it. Bless her, because she was good at maths and had A-level maths and went to Cambridge. She tutored me within an inch of my life, got me moved up a set, was able to take that GCSE. If I hadn't got an A in my GCSE maths, I wouldn't have then been able to get into the university that I then went to for a totally different subject, not maths related, but you had to have an A in maths. So I've had to close doors for me at the age of 14, 16. And I'd always worry about separating people. I think we should be pulling everybody up if we can. Anyway, it's an interesting debate. We have to leave it there. We're out of time. Jonathan Gibson, Bobby Seagull, thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you both.
I do hate maths, though. It still gives me the shivers thinking about GCSE maths. Horrid.
Yeah, but amazing tribute to you to actually have ended up getting it through that sort of tuition.
Thanks to my mum, really.
No, I never got it. I sat it twice, failed it twice, and then just lied on my CVs after that and said that I got it. No one ever checked. So
don't do that at home. Don't do that.
Well, do that. Do that. Life is
caught. You got away with it.
What if you do get caught?
Oh, you could be thrown out.
Put in prison?
No, but you could get thrown out. I don't know.